Show me someone with low carbohydrates and I'll show you someone that can't lift heavy. Show me someone with low carbohydrates and I'll show you somebody that can't run far. Show me someone that doesn't eat carbohydrates and I will show you a pretty unhappy person. Now, why? Because carbohydrates also have a big impact on our mood, sleep quality, and hormone optimization. So carbohydrates are not just on the surface level. They operate way deeper, much like fats and proteins. These are a macronutrient. Cutting them out completely is not the best idea. Right, which you probably heard, if you want to lose fat, cut carbs. No, if you want to lose fat, understand carbs and understand their purpose. If you go into a car, everything has its purpose. It's there for a reason, right? You've got the steering wheel, you've got the flashlights, you've got the gearbox, all of these components of a car. Now, cutting carbs is basically saying we're going to remove the right indicator. Do you need the right indicator? Not really. But if you use the right indicator properly, can it be really helpful? Yes. Will it help you maybe not have a crash? Yes. So we don't want to cut out the indicator from a car. Likewise, we don't want to cut the carbohydrates from our body. Now, I use that analogy to say that it's not the most important. We go back to the car, we get in the car. What's the most important? The steering wheel, the gearbox, probably the brakes. Quite important, yeah? These are the most important. So to put it into food terms, that would be protein is probably the steering wheel. Fats are the gearbox. And then carbohydrates are like the indicator and the, what do you call it? The screen wash. Not super important, but handy. So let's get practical. How much carbs should we be consuming? And how can we master carbs so that we can have carbs before marbs? Right. So, as I said, some of the cons for completely cutting out carbohydrates are not just surface level. When you cut out carbohydrates or dramatically decrease carbohydrates, a couple things are going to happen. Your performance is going to take a hit in the gym. So however you're training with carbohydrates in your diet, you can knock that down a couple pegs if you cut carbohydrates. That's number one. If performance is important to you, which I guess it is, probably like training and running or lifting or whatever it is you do. If performance is important to you, don't cut carbohydrates. If sleep is important to you, which I hope it is, don't cut carbohydrates. If your hormones are important to you, your testosterone, your this, your that. If these things are important to you, don't cut carbohydrates, because carbohydrates have a big impact on every single one. Now, what pen should I use? Green. Practical. Right. Practically, how do we view carbs? I'm not going to say the specifics. The specifics are dependent on your body type, your height, your genetics, your daily activity, blah, blah, blah. There's such a long list that if I gave specifics, it wouldn't be helpful. So it's more important you understand the mechanics. Practically, it's more about viewing carbs as a fuel source. So what does that mean? If you have a day which is sedentary, I don't know if I spelled sedentary right. Let me know in the comments. But if you have a day which is sedentary, which basically means you're not doing much, a rest day, you're chilling, you're watching a film, you're chilling with the missus, whatever you're doing, I don't know what you're doing, all right? You have a sedentary day. Carbohydrates now need to go, if we're gonna get the list out, proteins, fats, and all this stuff. If we're gonna get the list out, carbohydrates need to go right at the bottom. Now on that day, realistically, you want to be either not consuming them at all, truthfully, or only having some fruits. So on a day like that, I wouldn't be looking to have loads of sweet potato and loads of rice and loads of this and loads of that. On a day like that, especially if you want to be in a fat loss, so if you want to be in a fat loss sort of state, I would be prioritizing protein and fats throughout the whole day. Pretty much that's it. Because the carbohydrates, remember, as fuel, are not being used. You're not doing anything. So on a sedentary day, we want to decrease the amount of carbohydrates that we're consuming. Now, on an active day, we want to you guessed it, increase the amount of carbohydrates that we're going to be, hit my hand, increasing the amount of carbohydrates that we're eating, right? I hope this is painting a bigger picture of how to view carbs so that you can have carbs before marbs. I keep repeating this. I don't know if everyone understands that saying. Carbs before marbs. There's this thing about like no carbs before marbs. Marbella is a spot in Spain where, you know what I mean, the fellas go and you cut the carbs to get a six pack. That's where the saying comes from. But we're reversing it and we're doing carbs before marbs, because if you want to be somebody that performs in the gym, to put on the muscle, to then have a six pack and the, you know what I mean, the arms and all that stuff, and then go to Marbella, you need carbs to fuel your workouts. So carbs before marbs. Does that make sense? Anyways, enough about that. Practical. If you're active, what we need to be doing on the day where we're active is taking those carbs and increasing it slightly, but most importantly, timing. Timing is incredibly important. Now, for example, if you're gonna train at 10 a.m., what you wanna be doing is you wanna be getting about 1 gram of carbs per kilogram of body weight. So if you're 70 kilograms, you're getting about 70 grams of carbohydrates. Although I'd probably up that and say, shoot for 100. Why not? You only live once. And you wanna do that about 90 minutes before your workout, 60 to 90 minutes. This just gives your body enough time to digest and soak in the nutrients and place it in your muscles so that you can work out or do whatever you're doing. Nobody's standing there with a gun outside your house, and if you have it any later than 60 minutes, they're gonna shoot you, all right? This is just ideal. 60 to 90 minutes before you do your workout. So what's the main takeaway from all of this? How do we master carbohydrates? Because look, I've been there, completely cutting carbohydrates, messing up my sleep, terrible training sessions, which led me to feel really demotivated in the gym because my lifts weren't going up, which led me to not feeling my best, which led me to being angry all the time, and led me to just because I completely cut out carbohydrates from my diet. Yes, I started to gain some abs and this stuff and whatnot. However, I felt horrendous. Like truly, I did not feel good. Yeah. And ultimately, when it comes to being in this game of health and fitness and training and all of this stuff and improving and performance, carbohydrates play a massive, massive role. So here's how we use them. Carbs list. First thing, quality. When we're consuming carbohydrates, we need to focus on quality. Quality is incredibly important to supporting you to feel satiated. Feeling satiated after a meal is like probably one of the most important things. Why? Because it stops you from eating more, stops you from binging. If you're somebody that has a sweet tooth, or you're somebody that, you know what I mean, fancies a cake now and then, like me, you have to understand that quality carbohydrates are gonna be a godsend for you. If you consume quality carbohydrates, you're gonna be fuller for longer, which is just going to lead you to eating less. And that is the goal. So, quality carbohydrates. What are some quality carbohydrates? Well, sweet potato, normal potato, rice, brown rice, fruits, any fruit you can think of, vegetable. Like these things are very, very high quality carbohydrates. What are poor quality carbohydrates? White breads, white pastas, anything white. Without sounding racist, that sounds a bit racist, but any sort of white, grainy food, what has happened, the reason why it's become white is because it's had all of the micronutrients washed out of it. For example, rice is mainly brown. It appears as white because it's had a lot of micronutrients taken out of it. Bread, it's meant to be whole grain or sourdough type of bread. To get plain white bread, it needs to go through a process of a lot of the micronutrients being taken out of it. Now, those micronutrients are important, but also lead you to feeling fuller. So if you're gonna get bread, get sourdough or get brown bread, blah, 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 blah. That's a whole nother video. Now, the second thing we need to master when it comes to carbs is fuel. Use carbohydrates as fuel. About 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, about 60 to 90 minutes before each of your exercises, whether you're running, lifting, punching, throwing, you know what I mean, doing some karate, whatever you're doing, about 1 gram or a little bit more, about 1.5 grams of carbohydrates, high quality carbohydrates, about 60 to 90 minutes before you're about to do whatever you're gonna do, right? Fuel. And the opposite of that is that if you have a rest day or you're not doing anything, keep that day like a sedentary day. Or for example, you're in the office. You may be sitting in the office, you look across, Johnny's sitting there and he's had four Greg's sausage rolls and a baguette. Johnny's probably going to be pretty tired and fall asleep at about 2 p.m. Why? Because he's consumed a bunch of energy he's not using. Now, if you consumed all of that and then went on a marathon, fantastic. But most of the time, we're not running marathons. So, and the third thing. Stop fearing them. This is a big one. Seriously. Stop fearing carbohydrates. Stop thinking that if you cut your carbohydrates, that it's going to lead you to cutting loads of fat, feeling really good, and then you're never going to consume carbohydrates again. There are people and there's loads of stuff about the ketogenic diet and cutting carbohydrates and no carbs before marbs, as I said, and it's a joke. But the problem with it is that when we look at carbs, a lot of us can fear carbs, but the fear comes from a misunderstanding. I used to really fear carbohydrates, and as I said, I cut them out of my diet for a long period of time, which led me to being lean and looking like I know what I'm talking about and all of that stuff. And I'll be really honest with you, I became quite like arrogant with this whole cutting carbs, no carb stuff. No, I don't eat carbs. Carbohydrates are good. However, carbohydrates need a boundary around them and they need understanding. They need to be high quality. We need to use them for fuel. And we don't need to fear them for long-term success. For long-term success in the gym, for performance, for lifting more, for running more, for performing better, for feeling your best version of yourself, for your sleep, for your hormones. Carbohydrates have such a big impact on these things that when we cut them or reduce them dramatically, the flip side to that is they also have a dramatic effect on us. Now, the only reason we can cut carbohydrates is because they're the only macronutrient that is not essential. However, it doesn't mean it's not important. And that's the takeaway from this video. Carbohydrates are important. We just need to understand them. And when it comes to prioritizing, we prioritize protein over anything. And then we work out the rest based on what we're doing, if that makes sense. Do not fear carbohydrates. Use them as fuel. And when you eat them, try to have high quality carbohydrates. When we do all of these three things well, we can have carbs before marbs. We can look lean, we can be lean, but feel good. Because what's the point? Trust me, I've been to like 7-8% body fat before. Yeah, I looked really good and lean, but I felt horrible and my performance wasn't good either. Now, I don't know about you. I don't think that's a fair trade-off. I want to feel good, look good, and be good. And carbohydrates are going to support you with that. But that's enough of me waffling. And until the next one, blessings and love. Sorry, that's a heart. You can't see it. See you in a bit.